I don't go out for garbage removal. Cancel it. Those were the words of my new boss, who had just moved in. I had desperately searched for a venue for the welcome party at her request, only for her to suddenly cancel it? Huh? What does this mean? We've already made reservations for 100 people. It's too late to cancel now. You wouldn't expect us to go to that tacky place you chose, would you? I selected a more stylish venue, a high-end Italian restaurant. I was left dumbfounded, not knowing what Wilma meant. She must have intended to embarrass me by keeping quiet until the last minute. If that's the case, I have a plan too. I understand. I'll make sure to convey that clearly. With that, she quietly hung up the phone. I had reached my limit. I couldn't let her get away with it. I'm Regine, 33 years old, and I'm single. I work as a designer at an apparel company. I've loved clothes since I was a child, and my mother always taught me how to dress well. In elementary school, I wore clothes that I made myself every day. Regine, that skirt is so cute. I made it myself. I can't believe you can make something like that. That's amazing. I thought you bought it at the store. I was happy to hear my friends say that. After graduating from high school, I enrolled in a fashion school and took the entrance exam for a company of a fashion brand I loved. The president, Patricia, is a world-famous designer. I was nervous when I met Patricia at the final interview. Everyone else came to the interview in suits, but I wore a dress I made myself. While the others were taken aback, Patricia loved it. How interesting. I like it. And that's how I got a job at Patricia's company. It's a large corporation with hundreds of employees worldwide. I worked hard as a designer. Being involved in designing clothes I love was more enjoyable and fulfilling than anything else, and every day was rewarding. However, one day, dark clouds suddenly appeared in my sunny sky. My supervisor was replaced, and a new supervisor from a sister company was appointed. The new boss was a woman named Wilma, 40 years old. Wilma turned out to be quite something. From her introductory speech on our first day, we were shocked. I'm starting as the new department head today. My name is Wilma. Since I'm an elite graduate of Pratt Institute, I'll ask any employee with low academic backgrounds who aren't useful to leave. So be prepared. Wilma looked down on employees with lower academic backgrounds and flaunted her own. I graduated from a vocational school, so naturally I became a target. Regine, you only have a diploma from a vocational school, so it's easy for you to make mistakes. You can't even do arithmetic. You should start over from elementary school. She would say that, and whenever she found even the slightest mistake in my documents, she'd say, Have you seen this? Overtime for subordinates was mandatory, and she would say ridiculous things about employees who were sick. You should still come to work even with a cold. That's what being a professional is about. She was a cold-hearted person who said such things with ease. What was even more troublesome was that Wilma was so into men. The gender ratio in our department is strange. There are too many women. Wilma was single, so she especially loved young men. She transferred or fired female staff who didn't please her and hired only young male staff. She was very lenient with young men. They would go out drinking together almost every day, as if they were her male harem. Although our company also sells men's clothing, the main market is, of course, women. With fewer female staff, there were often problems with work. When I complained to my accounting colleague during lunch, she said, That woman, her expense claims are ridiculously high, and there are quite a few suspicious receipts. It's become a problem. Oh, really? Tell me more about it. My colleague said she would compile information on Wilma's suspicious expense claims. Wilma had various problems, but what I couldn't forgive the most was her habit of taking credit for her subordinates' achievements. One day, when I was thinking about designing new jackets for autumn and showed them to Wilma, she said this, It's such a plain and ordinary design. This will never sell, you know. Come up with something else. But it was my pet project, so I couldn't back down. I'm sure it will be a hit. Can I at least get approval for development? Well, if you're that confident, but if it fails, you'll take responsibility, won't you? She reluctantly approved. However, it somehow became a huge hit. I've created many bestsellers since joining the company, but this one was the biggest ever. The company's performance forecast was significantly revised, and I was recognized for my achievements. Then, Wilma said something outrageous. I'll represent the department at the commendation ceremony, so you don't have to come. She attended the commendation ceremony and even received the award money herself. Well, I'm confident in myself, so this is only natural. I couldn't stand listening to her bragging. One day, at my wit's end, I went to complain to Wilma. Wilma, isn't this too much? That design was my idea, you know. What? Are you saying I took credit for it? Wilma pretended not to know. But you did say it would never sell, didn't you? Huh? Did I say something like that? She smirked as she spoke. Isn't it natural for subordinates' work to be credited to their superiors? If you don't like it, you can quit whenever you want. And that was how it ended. Since then, I've been thoroughly disliked by Wilma. I wasn't allowed to do design work, and I was only allowed to do menial tasks like creating documents. I didn't join this company to do things like this, but there was nothing I could do. As long as Wilma was around, the situation would only get worse, so I began seriously considering changing jobs. At that time, Wilma asked me to do a troublesome task. Regine, you're in charge of the welcome party for the new employees next month. Huh? Am I supposed to be in charge? There were so many new employees this year that the total number of participants exceeded 100. I've never been in charge of such a job before, and I have no idea where to find a venue that can accommodate 100 people. So naturally, I struggled with such an unfamiliar task. When she found out, Wilma was furious. Hey, the venue still hasn't been decided. You need to contact the executives soon. Wilma is the kind of person who pushes me to my limits. One day, while having lunch in the cafeteria, I ran into Patricia, the company president, after a long time. Regine, how have you been? I haven't seen many products designed by you lately. What's going on? She asked me, and I explained the current situation, where I'm only given menial tasks. Well, that's troubling. You're one of our company's top designers, so doing only menial tasks won't do. I'll talk to the department head about it. By the way, do you happen to know of any good restaurants that can accommodate about 100 people? Since we were already talking, I decided to consult her about the welcome party as well. Oh, in that case, I know a good place. I'll introduce you. The president recommended a nice Japanese restaurant, and we were able to book the venue successfully. However, when I informed Wilma about the restaurant, she seemed displeased. Japanese food for a welcome party? Couldn't you find a more stylish place? Your taste is really lacking. I thought her comment was uncalled for, especially considering the effort I put into finding that place. But I decided not to let it bother me. On the day of the welcome party, as the organizer, I arrived at the venue early and helped with the setup in the large banquet hall. However, no one showed up, even after waiting for 30 minutes past the scheduled time. So, I worriedly called Wilma. Then, she said something outrageous. I'm not coming to the venue. Cancel it. What do you mean? We made a reservation for 100 people. It's too late to cancel now. You didn't think I'd go to that tacky restaurant you chose, did you? I've booked a classy Italian restaurant. I was left dumbfounded by what Wilma was saying. So cancel the other restaurant. We'll pay the cancellation fee. It seemed like she had planned to embarrass me from the beginning and make me take the blame. In that case, I have my own idea. I understand. I'll make sure to convey it properly. With that, I quietly hung up the phone. I had reached my limit. I couldn't let her get away with it without showing her some consequences. A few hours later, I headed to the venue of the welcome party with the man I had brought along. When we arrived, the party was about to end. Wilma spotted me and approached with a smirk. "Oh, you're here now? It's almost time to finish. Honestly, even though you're the organizer, you're utterly useless." Then she noticed the middle-aged man standing next to me. "Who's this old man? Today is a company party. What's the use of bringing an old man like him?" She burst into laughter while clutching her stomach. Nearby, Patricia, the company president, approached the man and started talking to him. "Oh, what's the matter, dear?" "Huh? Dear?" Wilma looked puzzled. "Let me introduce you. This is Andrew, my husband. He runs various food and beverage businesses." Mr. Hicks stares at Wilma and asks me, in a bad mood, "This is her. Is that right?" "Yes, that's right," I nodded slowly. "Why did you cancel the reservation for 100 people?" "Huh?" "It was you, wasn't it?" "Oh, well, it was me, but..." "How did the president's husband know that?" It turned out that the Japanese restaurant was once owned by Patricia's husband, who runs multiple restaurants. As I was having trouble choosing a venue, Patricia helped by showing me the restaurant. It was a high-end establishment listed in the Michelin Guide. With Patricia's introduction, I asked for a reservation for 100 people. So the cancellation by Wilma, apparently for the purpose of harassing me, was unreasonable. Patricia looked stunned. Mr. Hicks confronted Wilma. "I'll make sure you pay for 100 people. It was only natural because they prepared food for 100 people and it got wasted instead. "I'm very sorry." "Didn't you think about the cancellation fee? It's $8,000. "What? That much?" "Of course. It was a reservation for 100 people. All the hard work we put into preparing the food was ruined. It's a terrible inconvenience." Mr. Hicks was quite furious. "I understand. Then we'll cover the $8,000 as company expenses." "Company expenses? Would that $8,000 fall under company expenses? There's no way that can be done, right, Miss Patricia?" Patricia, the president, had been furrowing her brows at Wilma for a while now. "Do you often make expense claims like this?" "Well, President, surely this can be done. As the welcome party, it's part of our duties. So why not the cancellation fee?" Patricia, with a frowning expression, asked Wilma for more details, and they left the restaurant together. When they came back, Wilma seemed teary-eyed, and I struggled to contain my laughter. Later, Wilma received a severe reprimand from Patricia and Mr. Hicks for her actions. She was suspended for a while due to this incident. She was also subjected to internal investigations to see if there were any other irregularities. But I still had something to do. I requested a meeting with the president. "What's wrong? What do you want to talk about?" Patricia seemed unaware of what I was going to talk about. I showed the president some documents. They were something I had previously asked my colleague in the accounting department for. "What's this?" Looking at the documents, the president began to tremble with anger. "Call Wilma right now." Wilma arrived a few hours later. "What can I do for you?" she asked Patricia fearfully with a pale face. "What's this?" Patricia, the president, threw the documents I handed her at Wilma. As Wilma looked at the documents, her face turned pale. "These documents are evidence of the various fraudulent expense claims made by you. You're claiming expenses for drinking with a young male employee almost every day, and even claiming hotel expenses and receipts for luxury access. It's outrageous to treat the company as your personal piggy bank. Did you really think you could get away with this?" "I'm terribly sorry." Wilma apologized profusely. "I'll contact you later about your punishment, but be prepared." Patricia essentially handed down her dismissal. Wilma began to kneel and beg. Please, anything but getting fired. I don't want to hear any excuses. Leave now, Patricia ordered, and sobbing, Wilma clung to the president's legs. Please, let it slide. Just spare my job, please. You're so persistent. Enough of this. With that, Patricia kicked Wilma away. Wilma crouched on the ground, crying endlessly. It was the first time I had seen a grown person cry so much. After that, the investigation continued, revealing several more instances of fraudulent claims. The company charged all of them to Wilma, and the amount totaled in the millions. Of course, Wilma was fired on the spot. On her last day at the company, Wilma showed up at the office, presumably to clear out her belongings. As soon as she saw me, she immediately dropped to her knees and started begging. Can you please ask the president for me? I have mortgage loans to pay, and I can't afford to lose my job. Of course there's no way I would do that, I coldly replied. What? Remember this? Wilma's face turned crimson, and she stormed out of the company. After that, Wilma struggled to find stable employment, burdened with debts. In such a small industry, negative rumors spread quickly. It must have made it difficult for her to find another job. She went from living in a high-end apartment with expensive rent to residing in a cheap old apartment. She barely managed to make ends meet by working multiple low-paying part-time jobs. As for me, my career was going well, and I was working overtime every day. On this day, too, work ran late, and I ended up leaving the office just before the last train. As I left the company building and headed towards the station, I noticed a suspicious figure lurking behind the company premises. The person seemed to be spreading some liquid around the building. Hey, what are you doing? I approached the person, who turned around. It was Wilma. Huh, Wilma? She looked scrawny and unrecognizable. There was a strong smell in the air, and I instinctively covered my nose. It smelled like gasoline. Wilma was spreading gasoline around the company building. This is all because of you. I'm going to burn down this company. She yelled and tried to light a lighter. What are you doing? Stop! I grabbed Wilma's arm and struggled to take away the lighter. However, Wilma, surprisingly strong, was not easy to restrain. Someone help! Then security guards began to gather around. What's going on? Please help. This person is trying to set fire to the company. Fortunately, they helped me restrain Wilma and take away the lighter. We called the police, and Wilma was arrested on the spot for attempted arson. I couldn't believe someone would think of setting fire to the company. If I hadn't found her, it could have been a disaster. Arson is a serious crime, so she won't be getting out of jail anytime soon. Wilma was beyond redemption, but on the other hand, she served as a good example, as a lesson. I'll continue to conduct myself with humility and integrity in my career. I want to keep working hard to maintain this happiness in the future.